back, and this is video number 4. So essentially, the retaliation was um, the reason why there was a forced retaliation, and it was so unnecessary. So unnecessary. She had a one-page document that she could have squeezed through the door. It was, I mean, like, why do you do that? I mean, like, she was angry, and she was passionate about her revenge, and broke through the door for that. And I wasn't dressed. It was horrible. I can just tell you that if the stuff that I experienced happened to someone who was part of the majority, and I'm just being totally frank with you, and let's just say if an African American did this to them, it would have been all over the news. They would have put that person in jail. They would have done everything to say, oh, that was so wrong, what happened to her. Am I experiencing that? Absolutely not. What I'm experiencing is just dirty tactics to not even let me have a trial. And I've been injured permanently by Cortland. I've been injured permanently by them. And I can't even get to the point of having the trial. It's just so crazy. And this is Texas. So I just want you to be forewarned and be super careful whenever you're renting. Just be super careful. Okay, so I was reading and telling you, or not reading, but going over a couple of things about the forced entry. They canceled my sign renewal. I actually signed a lease to start right after, it was just going to be starting shortly. And they canceled it because I contacted the city of Euless. Um, I needed to have the floor stop vibrating. So any reasonable person would want to have that stop. And there was no effort seen by them to fix it. Also, there was borderline criminal activity that I will not go over with you. Some of it's kind of scary that I'm not even sure how far I'm going to get involved in it, because then I would have to share details that I'm probably not comfortable doing. But I don't know. So whoever needs to know about that will, once I feel that I want to do it. I just my whole take on life is like, I really don't want to be around anything like that or involved in it, or I just don't want to deal with it. But because I was trying my best to ignore a lot of things because I didn't want to deal with it, I was like, at some point you'll be able to move. That was my whole motivation trying to get through this, is praying to God and just saying at some point you will move. That's what I used to get me through this. It was tough. It was really tough. And all this because they didn't want me to renew. I mean, you just don't treat people like that. You really don't. And it's because, in my opinion, Texas legislation allows it. If Texas protected its citizens better, this wouldn't even be an issue. But what I've seen from Texas is that they're more concerned about the wealthy and protecting them than they are their own citizens. And guess what? There's about 1% of wealth and 99% of those who are not wealthy. And so you're protecting the least amount of your citizens. And that's sad to me. But I can tell you it was absolutely a horrific experience. And I did use prayer and thank you, Jesus, to get me through it. It was super scary. And it's still scary. Like, you know, I don't know, at one point I'm going to feel totally comfortable with it, but it was scary. While I was going through it and living in that specific unit, I did have a security alarm, so that was a saving grace. But can you imagine the sleepless nights when you're afraid and don't know what's going to happen? It was horrible. I can't even explain it. So I still have to deal with adversarial behavior by Cortland, and I wouldn't wish this on anyone. It just seems like they're not the type of people who would just want to resolve things and fix it and just not have any issues or problems with anyone or tenants. Because to me, that's the best way to resolve things. Like me and my role in terms of my career, that's the advice I always give executives is let's just let's just nip this in the bud. Why keep it going on, right? Nip it in the bud. Let's stop it. Um, so I just whatever. But I can let you know that litigation is tough, and it doesn't matter that I was injured permanently by Cortland. It's still a tough field in Texas. Anywhere else, like a lot of other places, would have resolved this already. This has been nothing but playing games and using dirty tricks to not have a trial. That's what I experienced because I'm up against their defense attorney, um, who's handled 450 landlord tenant cases in Texas. And let me tell you, he has treated pro se litigants, that's what I am because I'm not represented by an attorney. He has treated them horribly. Like he's ended so many cases prematurely, just always skirting around technical stuff, right? And some attorneys will do that. So, it just depends on if you have a soul or not, right? Um, so I just consider him ruthless and he's just a horrible human being. And his name is Corey Richard Rogers. Corey Richard Rogers out of Austin, Texas. And, once again, all this stuff is alleged um, until like everything's held in the trial. But my experience that I had with him is he basically tries, in my opinion, when someone is trying to scare you, I consider them a bully. So I consider him a bully based on his behavior towards me. Some of the things he said is always to try and intimidate me and scare me. And it was like that with the judge too. Basically trying, and it was so weird because normally you would think of a judge as being the neutral person who's just trying to apply justice, but that wasn't my experience at all at Texas. And there is a rumor, and I don't know if it's true, but there's another YouTube person who actually says that Texas is corrupt in terms of attorneys and judges having relationships and hurting like pro se litigants. So I don't, from my experience, I almost want to believe it's true. Do I have proof of it? My experience leads me to believe that there could be the likelihood that that does happen. There could be. Um, in my opinion, it's all about the wealthy. At least, okay, so I haven't experienced all the Texas county courts. This is only in Collin County, so I have to be transparent about that. Collin County is where I experienced this. So the Texas litigation, in my opinion, was written for the wealthy. Has nothing to do about the most of the citizens here, which is sad because most of the citizens here, who are 99% not necessarily wealthy, are the ones who are paying most of the taxes. So, but anyways, I've seen all types of tricks and done to avoid an official trial. That's what this attorney Rogers is good at. But it's horrible. It's really horrible. And the judges do seem to be pro-attorney and less into pro se litigants. Like they don't seem like they have the patience to even let a pro se litigant talk or present a case. Like for instance, in your mind, you might be thinking, what you see on Judge Judy or any of those People's Court, or even if you just watch online, you could watch live court cases. None of that happened in mine. None of that. None of that. I will let you know that none of that happened. It was horrible. Um, so just be careful because you don't want to end up in a situation where you have to be stuck in this type of court system. Um, my tip is for you to carefully decide where you want to rent. be careful and avoid property managers who are just in it for the money. I would rather rent from someone who was so passionate about something they just built and they want to keep their reputation intact. Maybe a smaller builder, someone who's like, this is my baby, this means a lot to me, and I want to make sure you have a good experience in it, that kind of person. I would rather rent from someone like that than a big multi-family unit landlord like Cortland because of my experience. Because they really, so far, has shown me that they didn't care that they injured me, hasn't taken any responsibility for injuring me permanently. It's not even like it's something I can go to the doctor and get fixed. So it just tells you that they're horrible people. Um, so I experienced two of their properties, and I can let you know the common theme is the thin walls. I was like, I don't think there's any insulation in the walls. They're too thin. Like you can really hear your neighbors' full conversations. And I'm the type of person I really don't want to hear that. So I'll usually go in another room if I notice that I could hear because I'm really not into that. So privacy issues, that to me that's a privacy issue. What if they're having a conversation talking about something that's super private? Like what if they're giving their social or something like that? You could hear that stuff through those walls. The walls are really thin. So just be mindful of that. Not only that part, but I hate to paint this gross picture, but this has happened multiple times. You can hear like if they're sick in the bathroom, meaning they're vomiting, you can hear that. That's how thin the walls are. You can hear them when they take a shower. You can hear that. Even having conversations while they're in the shower. It's just like, and I've been mentioning like the bathroom, it's other rooms like the bedroom. You can hear when couples are, you know, you can hear that. You can hear their conversations. It's just the walls are just too thin. And I've lived in enough apartments or visited enough to know that this is the worst I've seen. And I would have to say, on the other side of that, that Texas, or at least in this area, Dallas Fort Worth, obviously allows that because when you're constructing something, the inspector comes out and they do check it. So obviously, I mean, I don't know if it is obvious. I can only say about my experience at Cortland, and that's what I noticed with Cortland. It may not be all the apartments in this area. I can just tell you with Cortland, I can hear through the walls very easily. It's sad. And plus, it's a disturbance to you too, like your peace and quiet. Like when I hear it when someone's getting sick or whatever, I'm like in my dining room eating. So does that make me feel good when I'm, no, absolutely not. Um, the other thing that I've had consistently in both properties is plumbing situations. So I definitely think that the plumbing, um, and I don't know if others have, I can just tell you about my experience, but I was able to make the adjustments myself because it was during COVID and I just didn't want to have visitors because, being high risk, but I can definitely tell you that plumbing was a consistent issue in the bathroom and the kitchen. Um, more the bathroom. The other one was really the bathroom and the kitchen, and the second one was really just a bathroom. So, so there were a lot of issues, stuff close to 10 tactics and other things I won't be able to share at this time. But I can tell you the scary tactics that I really prefer to share with you so you can understand and have a picture where it feels like someone is definitely out to get you and they're doing things purposely to make you uncomfortable and just horrific things are happening. That's the stuff I want to tell you, but I can't do it yet. But just keep watching on YouTube. I'm going to once I get to a point where I'm able to share those things with you, I will, because people need to know that this happens, first of all. Um, and the tips for you to avoid these type of pitfalls, honestly, if it wasn't COVID, when the things kept happening, I would have tried to have a conversation about like just ending the lease because it was just really unbearable. But because I just couldn't do it at the time, a lot of reasons, health and stuff, I just couldn't do it. I had to tolerate it. And I knew that each time I tried to get help, it got worse for me. So it was better not to even say anything. And that's the sad truth of it. You say something, it gets worse for you. So what does that tell you? It's purposely being done. So just realize that if you do sign leases, read them, read the Texas lease, because in comparison to what I've read in other states, to me, they're the worst. They don't care about tenants. They don't care about, in my opinion, citizens. They just care about the wealthy. So just be super careful. It's not for you. And maybe that goes into how long you sign a lease. You know, do you need to try 6 months before you do a year? Is it worth paying an extra $100 or whatever to make sure it's going to work? It might be, because here you can't move out early. If you move out early, you have to pay a there's a fee to move out early, plus you have to pay a termination fee. So you have to be careful. Make sure you read and know exactly what you're getting into, because you're probably like a lot of us who came from other states and they didn't have to be so concerned about so many things, but you have to be concerned here because they are for the landlord. They're not for you. Um, okay, what other things can I tell you? And if you need to talk about your Cortland experience, perhaps you're someone who has gone through something yourself, feel free to email me, to reach out to me, or message me on whatever site you're finding me on. And I'll be happy to talk to you. If you're going through something, perhaps with another property management company, you want to ask me how I handled it, whatever you want, just feel free to reach out to me. If it's definitely something I can help you with, I will help you. Like, I'm not an attorney or anything like that, so, but I can definitely tell you what I've seen and what I experienced so far in the court system. I'll be happy to tell you, um, and give you tips on what I've learned, because I have learned a lot about the court system, from representing myself. And one of the things that we have to do more as citizens is really stand up for things that just aren't fair. Like, I really don't think what I experienced was fair, and the fact that I still haven't had a trial is not fair. But what we have to do is just stand up and write to Congress about changing the law, right? Because a lot of the things that I've seen here in Texas, I'm like, why aren't the citizens standing up for themselves? They just are comfortable in the fact that this is just how it is. Well, guess what? There's other places in the country that do not act this way. So I think that citizens need to stand up for themselves and realize that they are the ones to help create change. So write to Congress and try and get things changed. And I know it's a lot of work. Sometimes people don't really have the time. They're raising a family or whatever's going on. But taking that few minutes to send an email to Congress doesn't take a lot of time. Okay, and I do want to thank you. I definitely wish you the best on your rental journey. I hope there was something, even if it was the one little thing that I said, that has helped you. Perhaps you're someone who experienced a horrific experience like me. And perhaps you're just easygoing like I am, and just ran into a really bad property management company. Feel free to, like I said, reach out and share your experience with me. Maybe we can do like a podcast or something to talk about our experience. I'm definitely open to that. Okay, well, take care of yourself, and thanks for listening.